Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome to 5 and 9 in a one-stop co-op shop, where I go over 5 things you need to know about a game in about 9 minutes or so, something like that. Jason here, and today I'm taking a look at Castle Panic: The Big Box. It is an oldie but goodie cooperative game for 1 to 6 players in which you are playing defenders of a tower. You're going to have a hand of cards. You're going to be playing those cards frantically to defend against tiles of monsters you're going to pull out of a draw bag, and they're going to be waves and waves of them attacking your tower. The basic game is quite family friendly, but then you get into 4 expansions that add to the strategic choices, the replayability. So let's check out Castle Panic and see if it is the right fit for your family and game group. Disclaimer, I filmed a preview of the deluxe edition for the channel that you can also see. The link will be in the show notes. And I also got a review copy of the big box here. My number 5, the production on the big box. If you get one of these big all-in packages, you want to be happy with your final product, that it fits everything, all the expansions, mostly a pro. First off, I appreciate this. We have the insert map where you get everything, so you no mystery where things are stored. We have an insert for our board and the giant rule book with all the expansion material. The new quests, which I'll show in a little bit. You see that everything is molded. There's places of everything. That's the pro part. Don't know if I love the solution for all the tiles. They're kind of like in separate areas, but it works. The molding is pretty cool, so you can fit things in, and then there's molding for smaller pieces under there. At a certain point, they're like, there's a lot of pieces. Just here, have this well for all the spares. All of that is fine. It works out. I guess I'm a little bit mystified at these card well. This is the size, the poker size of the regular cards. That's not really secure. I guess it works, but that's not going to work. Mostly, I just keep them in the bigger well right here. It at least works. That's where the bag goes, and then stuff goes on top of it. So it all fits. So it's mostly a pro. Just wondering what's going on over here. My number 4, once again, mostly a pro, which is the included expansions. You get 4, which is wonderful. Having them all in the same box, they all fit. And let me go through each one in turn. So the Wizard's Tower expansion is truly essential if you want to take Castle Panic away from that more easy family-friendly space into something that has a little bit more strategic chops. It is all in the Wizard's cards. You replace one of the towers with the Wizard's Tower, and you get all sorts of cool powers. Wizard Quake and Chain Lightning really impact the board. Very swingy, very cool. You get the mega bosses. I will rarely, if ever, unless I'm playing with brand new players, play without the Wizard's Tower. Next up is the Dark Titan, also very good. This one adds a overboss to the fight. In normal Castle Panic, you just survive the monsters. Here, you're going to have Herald tokens that spit out, and then they go over here. It's kind of a countdown mechanism, which is really cool. Towards the end of the game, you get a version of Agnarok, and they're in scaling difficulty depending on how hard you want Agnarok to hit, and also 8 hit points, which is really huge and hard to defeat. That in that last battle creates a sense of crescendo in Castle Panic. You don't necessarily need that. I mean, the rhythm is exciting in and of itself, but if you want that sense, that more satisfying crunch at the end of the game, this one's a good one to mix in. The third expansion is Engines of War, in which you get to build stuff. So look at that. We get Siege, Catapult, and Ballista. Where do you get these wonderful toys? You get them out of the resource deck. You got your brick and your mortar and your rope, and you dedicate them to this engineer. And there's also things you could build. So you could build one-time power-ups, or you can, devote bigger resources to build your bigger stuff. I can see where the design was going for, kind of, devote resources here and be able to kind of affect the field. I found it a little bit clunky. As with a lot of Castle Panic, what happens is as they add in complexity, it adds in rules and crunch and things to track. So telling these two apart and, all the different things that you can do just adds a little bit on the player side that I wasn't too keen on. But if you like that sense of building, then Engines of War is where you're going to get it. And so the final expansion, this was pretty new, the Crowns of Quest expansion, which is also included in the big box. I actually like this one a lot more than Engines of War. This one was fun. First of all, you get characters, and it's straight up good stuff. So you can shuffle these into any single game at Castle Panic. Because they're extra powers, it makes the game easier. So the game tells you, adjust with making other things harder, but adding in the characters for a little bit of particularity in your particular play, no brainer, really good. To balance, you have these quests, and these are extra things that you have to do. And there's a ton of quests. So I like with Aladdin Castle Panic, there's a lot to read and parse through. There's some simple ones. Here you go, start the game, beat a bunch of trolls, and then proceed. A lot of them are going to involve moving around this scout. So then the scout is going to go around and find, the flag or the whatever little token you have around while you're doing regular Castle Panic stuff. So I thought this was really fun to integrate balances with the characters. So I can definitely recommend this one. If I had to rank them, it would be the Wizard's Tower, then the Dark Titan, then this one, then Engines of War. Number 3, my only con for this game, and it's a pretty significant con, it is a deal breaker for some players that I've shown, it is the monster tiles. So monsters are going to be coming in, you're going to pull them out of a draw bag. Here are the regular set of monsters, and they're pretty easy to figure out. Orc and Troll, Goblin, it isn't too complex. You'll get the Healer and the Goblin King, different kinds of monsters, different things. On its own, pretty easy to deal with. Then you shuffle in the Wizard's Tower. So you have the Ogre, the Phoenix, the Goblin Saboteur. They all have their different things they do, and they're all on their own player sheet. And then you have the Siege Tower, which I believe comes in a different expansion. You have the Mega Bosses come in their own expansions. Now you're looking at 3 different cards, especially if you're playing with a bigger game with a couple of expansions shuffled in. The fact that Castle Panic relies so much on extra text, extra cards, not just, a couple of mechanisms that change the whole game. Everything it adds is a block of text. Ooh, I wish they could have done that a little bit differently. Number 1 and 2, both pro, they're kind of linked, but I'll talk about them separately. My number 2 will be a sense of tactical coordination. What do I mean by that? So in the core gameplay loop, you're going to have your hand of cards, and most of them are pretty simple. So you deal 1 damage in the red archer ring, which is basically, that's it, and red knight, green swordsman. So you can look at your cards and figure out who you want to beat. You also have to talk amongst everyone at the table and say, okay, so I can do this hit, and then this monster will be over here, and then the next person, I'll trade you my green swordsman so that you can hit the orc when it's here. A lot of table talk that goes back and forth. Buyer beware, this is an older style cooperative game, so it doesn't do as much to mitigate the alpha player problem. You might have somebody that just sees the whole board and says, okay, you do this and you do this. You have to really be careful of that. I think that's a table problem, not necessarily a game problem, but beware for that. If your group is able to mind meld and coordinate, beat the monsters, follow the rhythm of the monsters as they're coming close to the castle, coordinate all that, very, very fun. My number 1, a clear pro, my favorite part of this game, a sense of rhythm. Sometimes you're going to have a nice, peaceful time of it, not many monsters. You're able to kind of coordinate your hand, especially if you're playing with the Engines of War. It might be a time to build up your defenses and get those weapons out. And then you have times where everything's on fire, all your towers are collapsed, you have monsters in the courtyard, you think you're going to lose the game. The game also gives you resources to recover from that kind of thing. So even in the base game, you have Never Lose Hope, Berserk, Double Strike, cards that can really turn the tide. So the sense of rhythm in the game, sometimes you're struggling, sometimes you're not up and down, the crescendos, the highs and the lows in this game. Very few cooperative games are able to manage that swinginess and still keep it within the game system in a way that makes sense. Fantastic. My favorite part of Castle Panic. Final thoughts time. Castle Panic has been in my collection for years, and it will continue to be so. I'm happy to have it in this combined form. The coordination, the classic style cooperative play, the tactical nature really excites me in terms of, not having to prepare 4, 5, 6, 7 turns down. You really have to plan for this turn and the next turn, where those monsters are coming from, what could be coming from the bag, discussing that around the table, and, that crescendo moment where you overcome a big wave and you come out the other side. Really, really satisfying for all those reasons. I love having Castle Panic. Now there are some difficulties, especially if you don't like the tracking. It really is a bear to look at that reference sheet whenever a new monster comes out. This isn't the type of game that I'm going to play over and over and over again. Even with the quests, which I can see kind of being layered together in a campaign style, it's not quite that game. It's a game that's in rotation. I'll play it, every 3 months or 6 months, and oh, let's play that again. I have to refresh and rely on those reference sheets. That's not my favorite thing to do. So a flag if you're into that. This is Jason with the One Stop Co-op Shop, reminding you that we'll see you at the next stop.